Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. We're competing against the presentation on AI, which is always a tricky thing nowadays, but thank you for being here. Welcome to the road towards marketing localization. What do I have on the agenda for you today? A good old case study about an LSP who tries to run a complex and challenging localization program centered around marketing for a huge enterprise. I'm basically giving it away already on the first slide. We're dealing with a top player in the automotive space in this case. I have so many things to discuss, so little time, so let's just rock and roll. See if this works. Yes. Now, before we start rocking and rolling, I'd quickly like to introduce myself to you. My name is Jurek Cisilski. I'm wearing many hats in the localization industry. I'm the co-founder and the CEO of my own company, but today I'm here as the CTO of Yamagata Europe. I have a passion for 3 services within our industry. Number 1, language technology consulting. Number 2, localization engineering and small developments. And number 3, market research is also something I'm doing quite often. My main fields of expertise, I'm very interested in audio-visual translation, everything related to speech-to-text and text-to-speech, automated, obviously. Machine translation is one of my sweet spots. Gen AI and LLMs, of course, a pretty unavoidable topic if you're into technology these days, but I'm doing this, I'm working on it, I'm leveraging it, I'm also integrating it in memoQ, by the way. And finally, automation and integrations, which is something that will come back quite often in today's presentation. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. The agenda for today. So I'm going to talk about Yamagata Europe's road towards a successful marketing localization program. I'm quickly going to introduce the client to you. However, I think the client does not need much of an introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about the program, and this program is a very big thing also at Mazda. It's an official project. It has a code name, enhanced translation process. So a couple of things, a couple of highlights regarding the things we've been doing for them while rolling out the program. Technology, of course, technology. This is memoQ Fest, and memoQ is the central TMS that carries the entire localization weight of all the different content streams that we're managing for Mazda, and memoQ is doing a pretty good job there. I'm going to limit this to 3 specific technology items. Number 1, Optimizely, the web CMS used by Mazda. Number 2, Eloqua, marketing automation platform used by Mazda for email marketing campaigns. And number 3, we've built a little tool which allows us to do language adaptation of existing content for Austria and Switzerland. That's not spectacular, by the way, but it's efficient, it works, it's a custom automation, which is why I want to dedicate 1 slide to it. Another slide on the analytics. We're dealing with Mazda. They're investing a lot of money in this program, and they want to have a clear image on ROI. They want to know how we perform. We're trying to measure that for them. And then to wrap up the session, 1 conclusion slide, wrapping up everything and talking a little bit about our roadmap. The client. Who owns a Mazda? Quite some people, yes. They have a very good reputation, I believe. I think they're good cars, so yeah. Mazda Motor Europe, we've been working for them since 2015, so it's a long-term client of Yamagata Europe. And you basically need to know or remember 1 thing about them. They are huge, right? They cater to the needs of 22 local markets, national sales companies, which we call the NSC. So if I talk about the NSCs, I talk about the local markets, the national sales company, and they account for 30 target languages. So localization needs into 30 target languages. Furthermore, there are so many stakeholders involved, so many third parties, agencies, other third-party partners that work for Mazda, that own the CMS, that own Eloqua, etc., and so on. A lot of stakeholders to please, which is a pretty challenging thing to do. And of course, localization goes beyond marketing. This session is about marketing, but we do a lot more for them. Technical communications, internal communications, sales materials, brochures, you name it, a lot of things, but this one is specifically about marketing localization. What's most important, they know what they want, and they know what they don't want. They don't want AI and MT for their marketing localization program. We're using it a lot for other content streams, not for marketing. Forbidden, right? They also know what their processes should look like. They have a clear idea of what they want, and they know that they need to allocate a decent budget for it, right? So they're like, this is what we want this to happen, and we want that to work seamlessly. Here's a bag of money, now make it happen. I'm not saying it has always been very easy to work with Mazda, right? It's a difficult thing to do. It's in a way a very difficult client, but from another point of view, it's actually a dream to work with this kind of client, and I think you can all relate. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the program, codename Enhanced Translation Process. So again, we had been working for them since quite a long time already, 2015, processing huge amounts of content for them, web copy, other materials, but truth be told, the process was never very efficient, right? What were the struggles? The different NSCs, the local markets, they were working, but they didn't really know from each other what they were doing. They were really operating as fragmented individual entities, no collaboration whatsoever. The linguistic requirements for Mazda and the NSCs are very, very high and very specific, but they were never documented, they were never centralized, they were never distributed among the different NSCs. So a lot of specific needs, but no one knows what they are expected to do, right? Turnaround times, I think you know this as well, when dealing with marketing campaigns, there are usually tight and strict deadlines attached to it. You cannot miss a deadline in a marketing campaign. The localization needs are high, strict turnaround times, difficult thing to manage sometimes. And again, as I already mentioned, many, many stakeholders to please, which is again, not an easy thing to do. They were serious about this, right? Mazda wanted change, and they organized a tender for it in 2022. They included us, 5, 6 other LSPs. We won the tender, we secured the translation work, and we were appointed as the strategic partner for Mazda in the rollout process of this notorious enhanced translation process. What are some of the tasks that we were appointed in the process? First of all, stronger integration, more harmony between the different NSCs. They really needed to start working together on a solid foundation. That's number one. Number two, need for automated workflows. Of course, no copy-paste. We're working with tools like Eloqua. We're having memoQ, APIs. We need to automate everything that we can potentially automate. The technological resources are good enough to make that happen, right? Streamlined in-country review. Every NSC signs off the content before it gets published, but of course we do not want PDFs, we do not want sticky notes, we do not want comments or printing it out, as Peter said in the progress report. We want streamlined in-country review, everybody using the same technology and applying the same processes. And then number 4, I already mentioned this as well, advanced analytics and reporting. A company like Mazda, even though they can give us this big bag of money, they need to know how we are performing for them. They want to have a clear understanding of the return on investment. A couple of things we did while preparing for the program, while rolling out the program. First of all, we redesigned the TM, the translation memory architecture, completely, right? We revised the existing TMs, we threw away everything that was obsolete, and we recycled everything that was useful. We started working with approved and working TMs because, of course, we often have multiple projects running in parallel, and we need to cross-leverage translations, even if they're not signed off yet by Mazda. Turnaround times, it needs to go fast, always. We're applying very targeted metadata to every individual entry in our translation memories. For every individual entry, we can track to which campaign it belongs, to which model it belongs, because one sentence is translated differently depending on the car model. That happens very often. And of course, we apply very targeted inter and intra-level priority mechanisms, which is something that is very powerful and relatively easy to do in memoQ, project templates, TM penalty profiles, you name it. If you really get the best out of memoQ, you can work with very specific and very tailored translation memories that really give you the leverage that you need. We did more or less the same thing with our glossaries, our term bases. We actually built them again from scratch, right? So we built the glossaries again from scratch. Again, we added very targeted metadata, the same metadata as in our translation memories, campaign, car model, you name it, very tailored. And we also started adjusting the settings on an entry level. We're an LSP, and we often make the mistake of managing terminology in an Excel file and then importing it into a term base in memoQ and go with the flow, pray for the best. No, for Mazda, that simply does not work. We need to have very specific settings on an entry level. Images, definitions, case sensitivity, matching, you name it. For every individual entry, and there are a lot of them, we have the settings figured out on an entry level. And of course, the same thing, we really want to apply very tailored priority mechanisms to the glossaries that we're leveraging in our projects. I can go into a lot more detail, but lack of time, let's continue. The linguistic requirements, this is something I particularly like because Mazda requested us to put together our linguist pool again, from scratch. And we did a very careful selection of linguists. We onboarded them, they were trained together with the NSC on person, on-site, or in person on-site, together with the national sales companies of Mazda. And we still do periodic briefings and questionnaires, making sure that everybody's on the same page, making sure that everybody knows what he or she is expected to do. So this happens very, very often. The linguists hold the key to the success of our program, and they get recognition for it. And this is something I particularly like. And then number 4, regarding the streamlined in-country review, we are in the process of rolling out the memoQ ICR tool as the only interface for subject matter expert review. We're onboarding the NSCs in phases, so not everyone at the same time. We're doing that per market. I think right now we've onboarded 70% of Mazda's NSC, so 70% are already actively using memoQ's ICR tool for in-country review. Everybody on the same page, leveraging the same technology and the same processes. Of course, the aim is to have a fully centralized and a fully integrated translation workflow where all of our linguistic resources are managed within memoQ, and also every individual workflow step in the process is done within memoQ. Content is not supposed to leave memoQ at any point. Okay. That was the program. Let's talk a little bit about the technology. And again, I want to limit this to 2 content streams. Number 1, Optimizely. Everyone or someone knows Optimizely? Yes. It used to be called Episerver. They had a rebranding. That's the web CMS that Mazda uses. Eloqua, a company that was acquired by Oracle, marketing automation platform, which is what Mazda uses for email marketing campaigns. And we do other content, again, brochures, sales materials, but I'm going to limit this to Optimizely and Eloqua. And I think I need to speed up a little bit looking at the time. So we localized Optimizely Episerver for years for them, but there actually were tons of problems with this. First of all, the existing localization support in Episerver or in Optimizely was really insufficient. It was, for example, not capable of grabbing all the content that required localization. Big issue. Little to no commercial solutions or commercial alternatives. It's also one of those big behind closed door CMSs like Sitecore, for example. So it's not like you can knock on their door and ask them to build a plugin for you. They will just, laugh at you and send you away, right? So we had an existing workflow, but it was very, very cumbersome. We really had to do all kinds of technical hacks to just make it work. So even though we had an existing workflow, even though there was some existing localization support in Episerver, there was not one solution that really, really worked for everybody in the process. So we had to come up with an alternative. What was or what is that alternative? We built a custom export and import module for Optimizely, producing a very tailored XLIF 2.0 flavor, which we're enriching with all kinds of custom metadata. And of course, more importantly, we're parsing we're trying to parse that XLIF flavor to perfection, so we're really leveraging everything that we're adding to the XLIFs from our custom export-import module. So a couple of particularities regarding our XLIF flavor. We're really chunking it with all kinds of targeted identifiers. Every identifier has a clear reference to the location of the translation unit. On the website, we apply targeted do not translate indications for certain translation units, etc., and so on. The export is customizable. We can export content in a very granular way on a sentence level, but we can also export bigger blocks of content, and we can merge them together into one XLIF file, which respects the chronological order of the content on the website. So you're really going through the website while translating in a chronological order. And we also apply character limitations in a dedicated XML element, which we're transferring to memoQ's QA. So if we send something back to Optimizely, there are no issues with character limitations whatsoever. So I hear some people say, Yurik, you're here talking about automations and the best you give us is some export-import of XLIF. Yes, and in this case, this is perfectly fine because I do have a couple of guidelines for you when it comes to automation, right? And I really encourage you to respect them if you wish to embark on an automation. Number one, don't automate what you've not done manually. In our case, we had to build automations to make the manual workflow work, which is a serious paradox. Not a good foundation to build something for them, right? Number two, know what's behind your automation because you need to be able to keep the show going if the automation breaks. In our case, we do not own every component in the technology stack. We do not own Optimizely, so we don't know entirely what's going on under the hood. Number three, distinguish a semi-automation from a full automation. Full automations are all about redefining control, and people, let's be honest, a lot of companies don't need full automations in a lot of cases, right? A semi-automation is often more than good enough. And number four, again, I actually said it already, a solid automation is a lot, or a solid semi-automation is a lot better than a bad full automation, and it's the perfect way towards a full automation if you have that need to make it happen, right? A couple of guidelines. Let's move on. Eloqua. This is something else. With Eloqua, there is actually one problem. The process is extremely manual. Everything happens manually. Creating an email, copying the email for every NSC. Translation workflow, copy-paste into Microsoft Word, believe it or not. Localization of assets, email headers, email footers, social media links, unsubscribe links, everything was done manually in every individual email. Problem. Solution, we built a fully fledged connector between Eloqua on the one hand and memoQ on the other. Eloqua, more than decent REST API, memoQ, the web services API. We tailored it to the needs of Mazda, the needs and wishes of Mazda, and it goes beyond translation. We do a lot more than just exchanging data for translation. In a way, this is very good for us because there's some kind of dependency for Mazda towards us. Problem with it, it's so tailored that if we want to replicate this for another client, there are only small parts, small bits of it that we can actually reproduce for other clients. Some particularities regarding our Eloqua memoQ connector. First of all, the data exchange is fully automated. We identify whenever an email is ready for localization. We deliver our localized emails back in a fully automated way. Project preparation in memoQ, generation of quotes, pushing all the statistics into our BMS, everything happens in a fully automated way. This is a full automation from start to finish. Content parsing, something else we try to do again to perfection. We have static HTML content, alt text in images. We have the subject line of the email, the preview text, the reply to email address, the reply to name. Everything is localized just fine. The assets, email headers, footers, as I mentioned, unsubscribe links, social media links, everything is localized on an ID-based adaptation way in a fully automated way. And we have a lot of stuff on our roadmap. If a certain model is not sold in a certain country, for example, we want to automatically exclude that content for Italy, for example, something else we want to automate. We're building a custom in-context preview. We are really trying to fine-tune this and optimize this fully for Mazda. Okay, the language adaptation, as I mentioned, this is not spectacular, but still I want to mention it. So for Austria and Switzerland, we do not translate from scratch. We always take the existing translations from German, Germany, French, France, and Italian, Italy, and we basically recycle that content and send it to the NSCs for adaptation. How does that work? A project for those three languages is done, translated, translation step is wrapped up. We automatically create a new project, we import the source content, we pre-translate it with the approved NSC TMs for Austria and Switzerland. We attach the working TMs for France, Italy, and Germany, pre-translate, unassign those TMs, assign the working TMs for Austria and Switzerland, assign the content to an NSC, and it gets adapted, automated, in an automated way. So the process is automated. Again, this is not spectacular. This is basically a collection of a lot of API calls, but it works, it's efficient, and Mazda is happy with it. Okay. Reaching the end of the presentation, a little slide on measuring the maturity of our program. What do we try to measure for Mazda? First of all, we want to measure the maturity of our linguistic resources. We've put a lot of effort in our translation memories and our term bases. How well are they performing? And of course, we also want to know how efficient our technology implementations are, our XLIF and our Eloqua connector. It's mainly based on edit distance, and I know edit distance is not unbiased at all, right? So a high number of edited segments does not necessarily mean a high edit distance, right? If you only edit one word in many of the segments. And therefore, we also measure other variables, like, for example, local satisfaction. Satisfaction of the NSCs who work with us. How satisfied are they with the process? How satisfied are they with the quality that they get in their translations? How satisfied are they with memoQ, by the way? And they are very satisfied. Maybe just one number. For Austria and Germany, in terms of edit distance, we went down with insane percentages, which is very cool, and I obviously picked the best markets for this screenshot. For Poland, for example, the edit distance is not so low, right? It's not so spectacular, but they are very satisfied with everything that we do. So local satisfaction very high, even though that's not really resonating with the edit distance number for that market. Business analytics, new feature in memoQ. We're really looking into it, and we want to deploy it on a very high scale for Mazda. I'm going to wrap up the presentation. Our road towards successful marketing localization. We have a good client. They are determined to establish solid processes, and they know what it takes. Our program is characterized by premium linguistic resources on the one hand, translation memories and term bases, and centralization integration within memoQ on the other. The technology is a combination of full automations, Eloqua, semi-automations, the language adaptation, and industry standards, our XLIF flavor for Optimizely, and we really want to take this to the next level. We want to make it better than it already is. That's a big task for me. Number 4, analytics and reporting, mainly based on edit distance, but there are problems with edit distance, so we're also measuring other things like local market satisfaction. That being said, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Happy to answer any questions you might have.